this team, about this program, and everything like that. So yeah, it's exciting stuff, Tyler, to say the least.
Plenty of things to dive into over the course of the hour with you, Joe. But first, as we've been doing all week long, we got to hit a little bit of a sandstorm pick me up. It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Joe, this is going to be bumping in the stadium all day long tomorrow. Hopefully after a lot of touchdowns, hopefully after a lot of good things from both this offense and this defense that you and I were talking about a little bit before we went on here, gives people a reason to want to go out and celebrate tomorrow night out on the town.
Yeah, they should. And again, that sandstorm break was much needed. Again, we are finally in football season. No better reminder than the sandstorm breaks. But yeah, should be a lot to celebrate. I mean, hopefully, ODU is not as good of an opponent as you have left on the schedule. But very formidable week one opponent, to say the least.
Well, and I've said this many times this offseason. Again, I feel like we've been talking in circles about the same handful of things all offseason because, again, we don't know exactly what South Carolina is going to be until we see Tomeith Leather coming up tomorrow. But I would much rather have an Old Dominion team, Group of Five team, FCS team, whatever it may be, and not to disrespect them. We'll get into why they could be a problem here in just a minute. But I would much rather have South Carolina starting their season with a team that on paper they should be better than, as opposed to like what we had last year where you're starting off against North Carolina, or like next year where you're playing a Virginia Tech in a neutral site game, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This is the perfect kind of opponent for a team that, again, has a lot of question marks like South Carolina does.
Yeah, it is, Tyler. You have a lot of potential on this team, and the rubber has to meet the road, right? I think nobody really knows what to expect. Are these guys going to have a learning curve straight out of the gate, right? Because of all the young talent on this squad, or are they going to be able to produce right away? You really don't know. And you're right, Tyler. There's so many question marks across the board for this team, and we finally get to see some of them answered. Finally, their football is here, and there are enough expectations and wondering and hypotheticals and all this stuff that we're not very good at predicting the future and all that stuff. So I'm finally ready for the season and the rubber to meet the road.
I want to caution people, as again, we're over 24 hours away from this game starting. If Carolina gets off to a slow start, don't start hitting the panic button. If their first couple of drives don't result in touchdowns, maybe they have, five or eight play drive and have to punt the first time out there, or they end up having to kick a couple field goals early in the first half instead of getting in the end zone. Don't panic. Again, it's a lot of new. It's a redshirt freshman quarterback. It's a wide receiver core we still haven't figured out yet. It's an offensive line that has not played a game together up to this point, with a true freshman starting at left tackle in Josiah Thompson. So they could be a little slow out of the gate. I'm just advising people, don't start panicking and saying the season's over. They should hopefully kind of hit their stride, if nothing else, maybe late first half.
Yeah, exactly, Tyler. And knowing this fan base, I'm sure there are some people that are going to get disgruntled when they don't score on their first five drives. But that's the nature of it, right? When you have all these expectations, and when you have all these built-in things that come with the program, you're going to have some disgruntled people when you have some growing pains. But this football team should be just fine tomorrow. But again, I do think there are going to be some growing pains, and you're playing a lot of freshmen as well. And so that's another question: is how quickly are these guys going to have the game slow down for them? I don't know if it's going to be within the first week, but I certainly expect some freshmen to flash as well.
My biggest key for this game tomorrow is, again, on paper, South Carolina is a lot more talented than Old Dominion. That goes without saying when you just match up, SEC versus a Group of Five. As long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot, as long as they're not having self-inflicted wounds, tunnel penalties, turning the ball over a bunch, missing kicks left and right, I think South Carolina should be okay, and they should be able to win this game. The debate, because it's a 21-point line, cover versus not cover, that's a different conversation to have. But I feel like South Carolina should be able to walk out of this game with a victory that hopefully, if nothing else, and that's the biggest thing tomorrow too, especially when we're talking about a guy like Lenore Sellers, making sure you're confident when you go into Lexington in week number 2.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, Tyler. Kentucky is going to be your first real formidable opponent this season. And you're lucky that you don't have to play Georgia in that week 2 slot like you have had to play in a couple previous years as well, because Georgia's a little bit more of a wake-up call than Kentucky is, to say the least. Like, this Kentucky game, you should go on the road and win, versus hosting Georgia. That, I mean, you're already banged up from the weeks prior, and you're usually hurt going into Georgia. But I mean, if you can make it through ODU without anything more than a couple bumps and bruises, and all your confidence still intact, you should roll through Kentucky. That should be a nice little road trip up there, Lexington.
And the way the schedule sets up, it gives you the opportunity to have your best first month of the season since Shane Beamer's been here. And as you mentioned, you don't have Georgia, which has typically been one of your September games that has obviously resulted in a loss these past couple of years. Again, you should be able to beat Old Dominion. Kentucky, very much a even type of game, toss-up type of game, but South Carolina has gotten the better of them these past couple seasons, should hopefully be able to go on the road and pick up that victory. I'm not counting them out against LSU. I think they got a good shot of winning that game. And unless LSU just goes out there and shows us they're going to be a juggernaut on Sunday night against Southern Cal. So even if you drop that game, you're still 2-1, and then you should be able to beat Akron if you beat Old Dominion, because Akron is a far worse team than what Old Dominion is. So you could be looking ahead to maybe walking out of the month of September at 3-1. Now, yes, your month of October is daunting, and you may not be as lucky in those 3 games. But if you can do enough in those first 4 weeks of the season to get yourself at least 3 wins, I think you're feeling pretty okay going in the month of October. Where who knows, maybe you jump up and surprise in Oklahoma or an Ole Miss team here in Columbia.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. You're hitting the nail on the head there. Like, your schedule doesn't get any easier, especially when you get down towards October. But if you can start strong and kind of keep the confidence going, a lot of people are going to be talking about this football team. I mean, especially if there's potential for them to end up 5-0 headed into Ole Miss, which they obviously got to beat LSU. But I think it's huge, absolutely huge, to retain confidence, because if you're retaining confidence week in and week out, that's how you string these wins together, especially in this conference, right? It's just being able to take what you did well last week, doing it even better the next week, and while improving on some of the things that you let slip by the wayside. And I mean, with the way things have gone at South Carolina these past couple of years, I think this is very much a momentum kind of program. So it wouldn't shock me if you get on a little run here in the early going.
Taking into account everything we've talked about this entire offseason, the storylines we've been following, again, one day before we kick this thing off, what excites you most about this team or the potential of this team this season?
I would have to go with, just again, like, we haven't really seen a lot of these guys, right? This team is the great unknown. So, they're playing for their reputation essentially, which is exciting, because you are going out there and proving to people that you still belong in the SEC, right? Just where this program is at right now, they need to make a splash, right? They need to get some national attention, to prove that they're not dormant, not going away and going in the wrong direction, away from the 2010 successes, right? Just with where this program is at, the success that they need to find is just it's exciting, right? It's a soap opera of the SEC almost. So it's intriguing. There's a lot to love about this football team, and then there's also a lot you can be worried about. So that's what's exciting for me, Tyler, going week in and week out. What excites me the most is these freshmen. I mean, these freshmen are all really good, and the development of these guys. Josiah Thompson starting, Dylan Stewart off the edge. Like, it's going to be really fun to watch these guys develop and see how quickly this game slows down for them as well.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Every team has a ceiling and a floor, right? Like you talk about the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, their ceilings obviously winning every single game and the national championship because of the talent that they have on their team. And sometimes that has, you have to have everything go right in that season for those kind of things to happen. And for South Carolina, again, we know they're not a team that anybody's looking at as a college football playoff team or a threat for the SEC or anything like that. But if everything goes right this season, if Lenore Sellers can be the type of quarterback that we hope he can be, if Rocket Sanders can return to form from a couple years ago, if we can have multiple wide receivers step up and be big-time playmakers on the outside, the offensive line looks better, defense can be as advertised, and then go out there and get those donuts that Debo Williams is always talking about, this team could win 8 games. And I'm not saying that's my prediction. I'm not saying they're going to. Again, if everything goes right this year, this could be a team that could push for 7 or 8 wins, I think, realistically. You know, again, it's a very tough schedule and it's easier said than done. And as the season goes along, our opinions on this team and other teams around the conference are going to change. But again, if everything goes right, this team could win 6 games. I think they're going to be somewhere around 6, at least making it back to a bowl game. But again, if this team can be as good as we hope they are, who knows? Maybe they can surprise us.
Yeah, Tyler, I'm with you. I think they're hovering around 6, but I mean the ceiling is the roof, man. Like I think you can get up to 8, 9 wins there by the end of it if you really string some things together. Down the stretch. That's the biggest thing for me is finishing strong. Because yes, we talk about how easy or how much easier the schedule is early on in the season and how much of a gauntlet October can be. The tail end of the stretch or the tail end of the schedule, you need to finish strong, plain and simple. I don't know if you're going to beat Missouri, but you got to give them at least a very good game to prove you belong as well. And again, I think 5, 6 wins is kind of the expectation at this point. You don't want to be taking a step backwards, and I think there's enough talent on this football team to where you're not having to take a step backwards. You're going to be fluttering between the 6 and 9 win range. So and again, I think 9 is certainly the ceiling. 8, 9 wins is certainly the ceiling. But you have some potential to do some good for this football team and for this program, athletics department, and take a step in the right direction, not necessarily go backwards in year 4.
It all gets started tomorrow, South Carolina and Old Dominion. We'll hear a little bit of what Coach Beam had to say on Carolina Calls coming up next. Appreciate everybody checking us out, by the way, on the Game TV, powered by Integrated Media and presented by our friends over at Shepherd's Glass. He is Joe Machika from the Big Spur. I'm Tyler Head, broadcasting live from Darlington Raceway, getting you set for not only football this weekend, but also the Southern 500 coming up on Sunday night, going up until noon here on the Game. I got to hit a live here, Joe.
All good.
Let me meet you real quick. Tyler Head for our friends here over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I tell you about them all the time. You need to be mindful of what's going on around your home. If you start to notice some things that are a little bit odd, like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors and windows that might be sticking a little bit, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door, these can be signs of serious foundation issues with your home, and you don't need to ignore these because they can get worse as time goes on. That's when you check out our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your home's foundation issues and get it fixed up right so you and your family can live comfortably. Again, go online to schedule an appointment at cantycanfixit.com for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Joe Machika from the Big Spur hanging out with you on this Football Friday. I am live at Darlington Raceway as we get set for the Cookout Southern 500 wrap up NASCAR's regular season coming up on Sunday. Hopefully, I'll see a lot of you guys out here this weekend. Met a couple listeners on pit road back in the spring getting ready for the Goodyear 400. So that was always cool. I also saw Lenora Sellers before the race, which I don't know if I told you this story or not, Joe. When you have somebody that's like, what, 6'3", 6'4", he stands out amongst the crowd pretty easily. So I'm standing there on pit road. This is, I don't know, an hour or so before the race. Very hot, by the way. And I just look up and I see this guy that is head and shoulders taller than everybody else. I'm like, that's Lenora Sellers. What's he doing here? Lo and behold, he was actually hanging out with Brad Keselowski's team, who went on to win on that Sunday, by the way. So Lenora Sellers may just have that winning gene follow him around everywhere. He obviously won at South Florence. He helped Brad Keselowski get a win back in the spring. And God, I hope he helps us win tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. That's an awesome story. I didn't realize Lenore was a big NASCAR fan. Maybe I can throw a pun, come up with a pun.
South Florence is literally right down the road from where I'm at right now. So I imagine he probably went to a few races growing up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to hopefully I can think of a pun if he scores a rushing touchdown that ties in with Darlington or the NASCAR race of some sort.
I was going to say, he also said in the media availability of the week, he's planning to be here on Sunday. So if you're on pit road before the race, keep an eye out for the guy that's taller than everybody else wearing glasses, because that's Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think all SEC quarterbacks should have some kind of NASCAR affiliation, right? Have a team, pick a driver or something, and yeah, I'm with it. Because NASCAR is a lifeline of the South, so naturally every SEC quarterback should have a driver, a team, something.
Well, we certainly hope Lenore Sellers has a big day at Williams-Brice Stadium tomorrow. Let's go back to Carolina calls last night. Coach Beamer speaking right off the jump about what he is looking at when it comes to this offense this year.
Night before home games, and we don't take everyone. We take the guys that primarily are going to have a role on Saturday. And of the 80 players, I think we're taking to the hotel tomorrow night, meaning they're going to play on Saturday most likely. I think it's 32 of them have never been in a Gamecock uniform before. And 11 of those are true freshmen that we expect to play on Saturday. So there's a lot of new faces. But to answer your question specifically in regards to the offense, it's still a work in progress. And I think we're going to look different in week 4 and week 6 and week 7 than we do week 1. Not that we're not good now, because I really like where we are right now. But, we've got 2 of our top receivers, 3 if you count Nick Harbor, because he didn't go through spring practice, that weren't even here in the spring. In Vandravius Jacobs and Dale Vaughn Campbell. They transferred after spring practice. We've got a lot of new receivers, obviously. Our offensive line I'm excited about. The quarterback gives us a chance to do some different things. And Rocket Sanders, in my mind, was the best running back in the SEC 2 years ago in 2022. And he's back healthy and close to 100%. So excited to watch him run the football along with our other running backs. And we've got more depth on offense than we did last year. There's no question about it. Now, the key for us is just going to be how quickly we can come together and be clicking.
Real quick, he mentioned Dre Jacobs there, and he's somebody that we expect to play a big role in this wide receiver room. Joe, I have to ask, have you been seeing the Vandravius memes that have been going along Gamecock Twitter these past couple days?
Tyler, have I been seeing it? I can't miss it. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. Every time I scroll through Twitter, I see a picture or multiple pictures of Vandravius Jacobs photoshopped on the LeBron, I saw him photoshopped on the Lenore Sellers' rec specs. Like, I don't know, like, clear eyes, full heart, can't lose, I guess. But yes, Vandravius is all over my Twitter feed. I guess I'm here for it. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. You and I mean, I'm 28. You're a little bit younger than me, but we get it, right? Like we know exactly what those memes are. We know what they're trying to accomplish. Preston asked myself and Elijah the other day, like, what's the deal with these Vandravius memes? And like, I guess I've never had to explain a meme before, but I found it difficult trying to define what exactly this format was. But again, like, we get it without having to explain it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny for us because of how eclectic it is and how just kind of like, I don't know, out there. Like, I didn't expect to see Vandrevius Jacobs photoshopped on the LeBron James this week, like, at all. And I think that's part of, like, the bit and why it's so funny is, like, these memes and everything, it's just random. Like, you don't expect to see Vandrevius Jacobs on the Magic school bus or something like that on your Twitter feed on a Tuesday afternoon.
Well, we certainly hope we're going to be talking a lot about Dre Jacobs, as he prefers to be called, a lot this upcoming weekend for a positive reason. As again, he's somebody that obviously transferred in late, after the spring portal with Davon Campbell coming over from Nevada. But everything that we've heard about him through camp, through scrimmages, he is emerging as one of the better wide receivers in this room. Now, again, I take everything with a grain of salt that I hear in camp, because we've heard about plenty of guys over the years like, man, this guy looks like a monster, and then you never see him on the field. But hopefully, because again, this is a guy that was at Florida State, was a 4-star kid coming out of high school, redshirted last year. Hopefully he is as advertised, and he is a part of what is hopefully a great wide receiver room that we see emerge tomorrow. Because again, that's perhaps been the biggest question mark this entire offseason for us to talk about this every single day. Who's wide receiver number one here?
It's a good question, Tyler. Right now, I've got Nick Harbor, I think, steps up. Gage Larverdane's making some ground. I think you see a couple freshmen in there, DeBron Gatling, Mazio Bennett as well. But yeah, Harbor's got to be wide receiver one, at least in terms of production, like getting him the ball. I think they're going to try to get him the ball a lot, even though he's not necessarily listed as wide receiver one. But yeah, I don't know. If it's not Harbor, I have no idea.
I think Harbor could be wide receiver one by season's end. I don't know if he's going to, in fact, I don't think he's going to be that guy for the first couple of games. Because again, you can't overstate, or you can't understate, I guess is the best way to phrase it, what missing most of the offseason has meant. And again, this is a guy that came in not being a wide receiver a year ago, was an edge guy, tight end when he was in high school, learning a new position. And we saw him get better as the year went along, but still, he spent the majority of the offseason focusing on track stuff. He only came back in the football fold basically in the past month. There's going to be a reacclimation period for him where, again, he's going to be out on the field. He's going to get his opportunities, but I don't think we see him truly blow up and explode into the guy that we hope and think he can be until maybe a couple games into the season. So for tomorrow, I personally don't expect Harbor to be the main guy at wide receiver.
Yeah, and it's fair. Again, with everything with track and getting things over, it's definitely a fair observation. But yeah, I don't know. This wide receiver room is an enigma. It really is. You've got a really, 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 really good coach, and you're just not sure which one is going to come out of it. But Mike Variarty doing a fantastic job with these wide receivers. I don't know, Tyler. I have no idea.
Well, hey, we've all been scratching our heads the entire offseason for everything to do with this team. The wide receiver room, the offensive line, the defense, which for the defense, given the experience that you have, especially in your first two levels, you just imagine in your mind, like, it's got to be better than it was last year. But that being said, sometimes when toe meets leather, it doesn't live up to what you think it's going to be. And I certainly hope we're not talking about Old Dominion scoring more than 20 points tomorrow.
Yeah, this defense needs to put their foot down. And this offense also needs to do a good job of running the football, right? I think they're going to try to run the football. South Carolina's going to try to run the football a lot. And Tyler, I know you asked me about the defense. I swear it ties in. But so they're going to try to run the football a lot on offense to try and just give the defense a break, because we know about ODU's tempo. We've been hearing about it. We've been talking about it. They're going to just go quick. So I fully expect Dowell Loggins to run the football quite a bit, to give his defense just some time to breathe and catch up. Because when you keep going, and just keep putting the defense back on the field, they're going to lose their breath. I don't care how fresh you are going into the season. If you're playing a team with week one, you're not going to be as fresh as you think by the end of it. So this offense needs to run the football and take care of business there, so that way this defense can get their legs back, be ready to go for every series. And if they can do that, then I fully expect them to hold them under 21. But if they can't, never know.
We'll see what happens tomorrow at 4:15 kickoff. Pregame coverage starting with myself and Terry Ford for Gamecocks game day at 11 a.m. We'll lead you right into network coverage at 1 o'clock. Then again, the kickoff is at 4:15 coming up tomorrow afternoon here in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach, as South Carolina takes on the Monarchs of Old Dominion. We'll take a look at some of the games that happened last night because, oh boy, we had some nail biters for games that some teams probably didn't think were going to be nail biters. We'll re-rack what happened last night and which teams are feeling good coming away from their early Week 1 games. It is the Extra Point Tyler Head broadcasting live out at Darlington Raceway, getting set for Southern 500 weekend. We'll talk plenty of NASCAR coming up in the next hour, and then Joe Machika from the Big Spur getting you set for Gamecock football coming up tomorrow as well here on your Football Friday on the Game.
All right, halfway there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave, can we get a cut number 20 coming back in the bumper, please? Yep, thanks.
They just get it off into the end zone. Contact. What a catch! A miraculous, implausible, impossible catch by 12.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Joe Machika from the Big Spur hanging out with you on this Friday. A football Friday, getting you set for South Carolina and Old Dominion coming up tomorrow here on The Game. But, of course, we had some action last night. That was the call in the second half with Colorado taking the 31-26 win over the Bison of North Dakota State off the back of some pretty impressive catches there by Travis Hunter, including that third one for a touchdown there. As the Buffalo, I don't know how good they're going to be, but they at least were able to sneak by the very, very good North Dakota State Bison team last night out of the FCS.
Yeah, Tyler, Colorado survives. And, they looked a little bit better than I thought they would, but they were pretty close to on the nose for typical Colorado. My prediction was pretty close. I had Shadur getting sacked a bunch, which North Dakota State didn't get to. I also had Shiloh getting ejected, which almost happened for targeting. And then, they barely escaped things in Colorado at home. But, again, the catch by Travis Hunter was nuts. It was a heck of a play by the DB to try to get him down and out, and Travis just turns around and just snatches it across his body like it's nothing. So that was pretty legit and all around pretty good night of college football for the most part.
Last night confirmed something to me that I thought about this team going into the season, is that they are going to go as far as Shedeur Sanders' arm and Travis Hunter's athleticism can take them, which was kind of the case last year, because the offensive line, while better, still didn't look great. The defense still looked about the same from last year. They gave up 449 yards. North Dakota State last night, who absolutely ran the ball down their throats the entire game, which is why it was so tight the entire time. Again, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter have NFL caliber talent. You saw that on display last night. Shedeur Sanders acting like Houdini on some of those plays, getting out of trouble, launching some bombs downfield. Again, Travis Hunter's athleticism obviously speaks for itself. I'm not expecting a lot out of the team this year. I think they're probably going to lose next weekend at Nebraska. But again, you have two high caliber guys on this team that are really going to be pulling the weight of everybody else, it seems like.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one on the road at Nebraska. I think that's their first real opponent. I don't know. I think if they win, it's going to be all Dion and all Colorado, all everybody's talking about for the next couple of weeks. But I'm with you, Tyler. I don't know if they escape Nebraska because, again, they exposed their weaknesses last night as if we didn't know they weren't going to be the same thing as they were last year. As you mentioned, the run defense and just defense in general was bad. The offensive line wasn't great. And then, Shiloh is kind of a loose cannon out there on defense, man. That guy's a walking penalty flag a little bit when it comes to it, just hitting guys out of bounds and stuff like that. So there's some things that they got to tune up. But you're right, Tyler. I mean, as far as Shedeur and Travis can really go, it's as far as this team goes.
And that matchup last night was a very compelling game that came all the way down to the end with North Dakota State coming up short with a heave towards the end zone in the last couple seconds there. As far as the best total matchup of the night, last night you had North Carolina going on the road to Minnesota to open up the season. North Carolina beat Minnesota at home a year ago, and the Tar Heels were able to walk away with the victory, but at what cost, as Max Johnson, who just transferred over there after coming over from Texas A&M after Jimbo Fisher gets fired, and this is his third school in just a handful of years, wasn't having a great game. Ends up going down with a knee injury, and I have not seen the latest injury report on him, but it did not look good. Connor Harrell, is able to come in and finish out the game for the Tar Heels as they were able to take advantage of a missed last-second field goal by Minnesota and walk out there with a victory. But again, Max Johnson looks like he might be out for maybe a while, maybe even the whole season, if it's as bad as it seemed.
Yeah, Tyler, I'm convinced nobody wanted to win that game last night. I think UNC, both teams, it was a dogfight throughout, but I think losing Max Johnson stinks, even though Connor Harrell is kind of the guy that was, in waiting after Drake May. And so, I don't know, I think Harrell, they should be just fine with Harrell. It was coming down to a QB battle, whether or not Johnson or Harrell was starts. Obviously, it stinks to lose your starting quarterback, and Johnson, he's proven to do it in the SEC. interesting win for North Carolina in week 1. I fully thought PJ Fleck and Minnesota were going to pull that one out, but again, I guess wins of North Carolina.
And looking at this here, I don't see any new injury report on Max Johnson in that game. It was delayed an hour because of weather in the area, and they played through a rainstorm last night. So I don't have any update on Max Johnson as of right now, but certainly did not look good, and he seemed to be in a lot of pain when they carted him off. Did have a couple of SEC teams in action last night, and Missouri and Arkansas had no problem dispatching of their opponents as they combined to win their games 121-0. Arkansas beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 70-0. And then Missouri ends up taking down Murray State, the Fighting Jody Wrights, 51-0 in just 2 classic type tune-up games that really didn't tell us anything about either one of these teams, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either, Tyler. I think Missouri looked as good as they were going to. I didn't think Murray State was going to offer that much of a fight, even though Jody Wright, first season as the head coach down there. Missouri is just really, really overpowered this season. I mean, Brady Cook, Luther Burden, everyone's back. Former Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine saw action. They're backup to the backup. So yeah, Missouri got through the roster. They were making sure to play everybody. And then Arkansas, 70 points, I think, is what they finished with, right? 70 points for Sam Pittman. Are the Hogs still dead in the water? Like, is it too early to say that they're not dead in the water?
It's Arkansas Pine Bluff, man. I'm not making any kind of conclusions or saying Arkansas is this or that based on that game. Give me a quality opponent, and then I'll make an observation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm with you. I think anybody should beat Arkansas Pine Bluff by 70, but we'll see. I mean, I think if we're talking early takeaways for the SEC, that's about as early as a good takeaway as you can get for Arkansas. So I'm sure those Hog fans are going to take it where they can get it this season.
The game that ended up being more interesting than I think a lot of people thought was NC State taking on Western Carolina last night. Tied at 14 at halftime. Western Carolina held a 21-17 lead at one point in the third quarter, but the Wolfpack was able to pull away in the fourth to beat them 38-21. But this game is a whole lot tighter than that score indicated. Western Carolina got a huge interception in the first half to be able to run themselves down inside of till I think the 5-yard line. Almost had a pick 6 out of it. But Grayson McCall's first start as a NC State Wolfpack, or as a member of the Wolfpack, went 26-40, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And this is a team that quietly won 9 games a year ago. I think they are that sneaky kind of pick for the ACC to win the ACC entirely. And Grayson McCall obviously slung the rock very well when he was at Coastal Carolina, and should do the same thing here at NC State. And I will chalk game 1 up to maybe some first game jitters, especially for starting quarterback for the first time in the ACC. Hopefully they come into form a little bit better in these next couple weeks, and it's the same team we saw last night.
Yeah, I think when Florida State leaves the ACC for the SEC, Western Carolina should get the bid. I think I saw that somewhere on the internet last night. But no, shout out to Western Carolina, man. All these teams in this week 1 slate, are likely it's like, it's a pushover or something like that. Western Carolina has given, in terms of upset alert, given us the biggest push for an upset alert so far yet. So I don't know. Tyler, do you think we see any upsets this week? Anything super crazy?
I am personally picking South Dakota State to upset Oklahoma State. We saw what NDSU did last night with Colorado. South Dakota State's won the past 2 FCS national championships. Oklahoma is notoriously a slow starter when it comes to early games in the season. I think SDSU might pull this off tomorrow. It's only a 9.5 point spread.
Yeah. I like it. And then Ollie Gordon suspended for the first half. They're going to be without him for a little bit.
Is he actually suspended? I didn't think I saw anything like that.
I can't remember.
I mean, Gundy essentially dismissed his drunk driving, saying, I did it 1,000 times myself, a couple weeks back. But let's see. I'm not seeing anything on Ollie Gordon.
Either way, if he's playing, we're going to see full Ollie Gordon. But I think if he's not, then even more so to your point with San Diego, or not San Diego, South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. Yeah.
we'll see. It's going to be a fun weekend. You have a lot of these tune-up type of games. So you have plenty of good games sprinkled in between. Obviously, Georgia and Clemson, got A&M and Notre Dame. I know you're going to be keeping an eye on that one coming up on Saturday night, as well as Southern Cal and LSU capping things off on Sunday night. But Joe, before we let you get out of here, coming up next, we're going to let you make your score prediction and give your keys to the game. See how South Carolina can hopefully pick up a victory against the Monarchs of Old Dominion coming up tomorrow. It is the Extra Point on your Football Friday. Tyler Head broadcasting live out at Darlington Raceway, joined by Joe Machika from the Big Spur here on your Friday on the Game.
All right.
No worries. Unlimited sampling of over 40 brands of local and national craft beers.
So you don't have them covering?
Who?
Carolina.
I think I have my prediction is covering, but yeah,
Gotcha.
realistically, probably not.
Nothing wrong with the bold take.
Yep.
Champion, but somehow last year Florida State was vilified for that. How do they start their revenge tour in 2024? By flying 4,000 miles to lose their season opener in Ireland against Georgia Tech. But because of a now expanded playoff, it's possible that an 0-1 Seminoles team has more of a shot for the postseason than they ever did last
Oh, did you see the whiteout? How Florida's doing whiteout for the stands, and Miami's wearing a white jersey.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty good.
It's gonna look so weird.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. Florida. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you because they have the option to wear white. In week one, you never do a whiteout week one.
And also the whiteout, that's Penn State's thing. You're clearly copying them.
Yeah, true. Stick to won't back down.
Florida's gonna Florida.
Yeah, true.
eBay Motors, you have over 120 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cameras. Ride or die, alive. At ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusion.
It's back. The 49th running of the Colonial Cup returns Sunday, November 17th to Camden, South Carolina. Considered the greatest steeplechase event in horse racing. Presented by Mulligan Law. Special thanks to the city of Camden and Kershaw County. Don't miss the pinnacle of steeplechase at the Springdale Racecourse in Camden, South Carolina. Family fun, shopping, unique entertainment, and incredible tailgating. Reserve tickets now at carolinacup.org.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mailpiece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up. Wesley Financial Group. Has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families to help get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-743-8989.
Hey Dave, can I get cut number 2 coming back on the bumper, please? Thanks.
It's been great. It feels like we've been getting ready for them forever. But no, it's been a really good week. This group has been who I've said they've been. They've been that since January. This group that we're coaching, I mean, they're all business. They handle their business. They work hard. There's not issues off the field. They're just a really fun group to coach and be around day in, day out, and excited to finally get to let them play against somebody else on Saturday.
Welcome back in, Extra Point. Tyler Head broadcasting live out at Darlington Raceway. Southern 500 coming up on Sunday night. Wrapping up NASCAR's regular season. We'll get into plenty of conversation about that coming up in the next hour. But Joe Machika from the Big Spur hanging out with me for a couple more minutes here. That was Coach Beamer last night in Carolina Calls, talking what we've said pretty much these entire last couple of weeks. Like, we're just ready to see the action coming up this weekend. We've talked these storylines to death. We have a ton of questions. Want to see them answered. And Joe, for your last couple of minutes here, man, how do you see this thing playing out tomorrow?
Tyler, I've got it playing out pretty good for South Carolina. I think everything gets off to a good start. I don't think it goes exactly to plan. There's going to be, a couple moments where it's like, like what's going on? This wasn't, all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be a couple moments where it's like, the fans aren't necessarily in control, or it's not where, working towards the vision or exactly as you expected it to go. But, I do think South Carolina wins this one. I don't think they cover simply because it's week one. And I know I might have said that earlier, and I got them in my picks as covering, but I don't. 21.5. I think they beat them by 3 scores. I don't think it's the extra half a point doesn't really do too much for me. I expect the freshmen to flash. Everyone's going to get playing time and flash as well. Like I said, Dylan Stewart. A lot of guys in the defensive backfield as well. Vakar Swain, one of those guys as well. I fully expect them to win. It's not going to be pretty throughout the entire game. Most of the game is going to go exactly how you'd expect it to go. But again, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 moments in this game where it's like, They didn't do that well in summer camp as well, or something like they missed a block here or something like that. There's going to be growing pains with just because of how young this team is, and naturally so. But I don't think they'll cover 21.5, but they win, and it feels comfortable at the end of it.
What does that final score look like for you?
I got 35-14.
So you're predicting right on the number then, 21.
Yep, 21, right on the yeah.
That'd be a push.
I thought I'd seen the line at 21.5. That's my fault.
Okay, I'm looking at or ESPN at least has their line. And again,
at 21.
Okay, every site has something different. So from the site you're looking at 21.5, ESPN has it listed as 21 as of right now. So according to your source, it is not covering. According to ESPN, that would be a push.
Either way, yeah, it's pushing for 21. I don't think it goes over 21. And if that, they might be able to cover it in terms, like, I don't know. It just depends on how this defense plays, right? Can they keep ODU off the field and limited? Because I think this offense is going to score points. It's just a matter of how quickly do they do it, and then because if they're scoring quick, there's going to be a lot of possessions. But I think what it boils down to is just defense. How in unison are they going to be able to play on week one? We know they're ahead of the offense as they always were, going into this spot in the year. But it's just limiting mistakes on defense, I think, is the MO for them this week.
What are we talking about the most positively on Monday coming away from this game, in your opinion?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's going to be the run game, because I think you have so many options in that backfield between Oscar Attaway, Junior McDowell, and then the Rocket, of course. They're going to try to run the football pretty heavily. And I think, with the amount of times that they run the football, they're going to find a way to make it work. It might not be all sunshine and rainbows at the beginning, but again, they're going to get the ground game off and running. They're going to get it moving. They have to if they want to win this game, simply because if you're throwing the ball left and right, Old Dominion's going to make your defense wear out fast. So I think you can't afford to not run the ball, and I think that'll kind of be it. And going into Kentucky, you'll talk about, hey, look, there's a run game, and you've got a lot to build off of going in Kentucky. A lot of positive things to take with you as well.
And look, the run game is expected to be the primary identity of this offense in a lot of people's eyes. And yes, Lenore Sellers has a rocket arm. He can throw down the field, but his skill set coupled with Rocket Sanders in the backfield, we should see a heavy dose of the run tomorrow. And hopefully, as we've been wondering about the entire offseason, that offensive line can open up those holes to make those lanes for the backs and for Sellers as well.
Yeah, I would agree, Tyler. And I'm excited to see Sellers, obviously. It feels like he's been here forever at this point, with the offseason and the way he's been, treated as a starter coming up. But Lenore Sellers gets his first start as a Gamecock quarterback. It's not something to be looked over. Even though he's very humble, quiet, a kid, this is an important game for this next era of Gamecock football. And, I fully expect the kid to ball out, man.
Well, hopefully this time Monday, we're talking about the Heisman campaign for Lenore Sellers if he has a good day on Saturday. Joe, appreciate your time. We'll check back in with you next week, hopefully talking about a win from Saturday and hopefully talking about a good feeling team heading into Kentucky next weekend. Appreciate it, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Can't wait and appreciate it as always, my friend.
It's the Extra Point, hour number 2, coming up live from Darlington Raceway. Plenty more racing and football conversation on your Football Friday here on The Game.
One sec, Joe. Got to do it live here.
Oh, I always love telling you about my friends over at Twin Peaks down in the Vista. And as we get set for a full slate of college football coming up this weekend, what better place to take it all in than with Twin Peaks? TV is as far as the eye can see. Of course, those delicious 29-degree draft beers and all the great food you can think of. But you don't have to wait for the weekend. They're serving scratch food and pouring quality cocktails every single day after dark. Come by the Lodge and experience the best late night in the league today, tomorrow, or any other day of the week. And certainly it's going to be a fun and rowdy place, taking all the action, not only college football, but professional football as well. By the way, if you want to work for Twin Peaks, if you're looking for a job as a Twin Peaks girl, cooks, busser, barbacks, and more, just text WORK4TP. That is work the number 4TP to 85000. That's WORK4TP to 85000 to work with our friends over at Twin Peaks down in the Vista.
All right. Appreciate it, Joe.
Yep. Thanks, Tyler. Have fun at the race this weekend.
All right. Catch you next week.
Who's your guy? Who you got this weekend?
I'm a big Kyle Larson guy. He's always got a good chance. I'm picking Ross Chastain though because he's got to get in the playoffs. I think it should be a fun.
Man.
That's right.
All right, sweet. I'll be watching. I'm with it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll roll with the watermelon man this weekend.
Yeah, he's good here. Yeah, he's almost won a couple times. So, yeah, should be a fun one.
Sweet. All right, Tyler. I'll talk to you next week, boss. Thanks for having me as always.
Later.
Peace.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head with you on this Football Friday. There is so much cool stuff going on this weekend. Obviously, I'm broadcasting live out at Darlington Raceway, getting set for Cookout Southern 500 coming up on Sunday as the NASCAR Cup Series wraps up its regular season and sets the field for the 16 drivers that will vie for NASCAR's championship in the playoffs starting next week in my home track of Atlanta. Should be a good race. I was just talking with Joe there from the Big Spur before he hopped off there about who my favorites are for this weekend. I really like Ross Chastain. He's somebody that's below the playoff cut line right now. Really needs to win on Sunday to get himself in. Bubba Wallace may be able to point his way in. 21 still a bit of a stretch. We'll see what happens. But Kyle Busch, plenty of viable guys that are below that cut line that certainly could surprise people here on Sunday night, which I think the race is going to be very interesting, very compelling, especially as a regular season finale compared to it being the start of the playoffs as it's been for these past couple of years. But a lot of conversation about the Southern 500 to come as the hour rolls along. I'll let you listen to my conversation with most recent Cup Series winner Harrison Burton after he picked up his win at Daytona on Saturday night, coming up a little bit later on this hour as well. Of course, lots of football that's happening this weekend, the opening weekend of, or really the full opening weekend of college football. We had week 0 last week, but of course, this is the formal start of the season for most teams, and something pretty cool we're actually doing here on the game coming up on Sunday at 3:30. Be able to listen to the Black College Football Hall of Fame game between Benedict and Virginia State. Again, that is a 3:30 kickoff, which you'll be able to listen to right here on the game in Columbia. And of course, most of our focus is going to be on South Carolina coming up tomorrow, taking on Old Dominion at Williams-Brice Stadium, 4:15 kick. Premium coverage again, starting with myself and Terry Ford for Gamecocks Game Day at 11 a.m. out the party lot at Sound Images, leading you right up to network coverage at 1 o'clock. 21-point margin, 21-point spread, according to ESPN. I know, depending on where you look, there are various lines, 20.5, 21, 21.5. So it's right around the same, right? Which I think sounds about right for where this line should be. Now, this is an Old Dominion team that's tricky. We've talked about it a lot this week. This is a team that lost a lot of close games last year, played a lot of close games in general last year. The only 2 games that really got away from them were Virginia Tech and a ranked Liberty team later on in the season. But they definitely have the ability to make this game interesting. And like South Carolina, they're welcoming a ton of new faces onto their roster. Let's go with cut number 15 here, Dave. Here's Aaron Zielinski yesterday talking to us from the Monarchist on the Extra Point about the 57 new players the Monarchs are welcoming to their team this year.
I do. There's definitely something to that. I mean, coaches.
That's Clayton White. We need to go from today's cut list, cut number 15 of 15 new players for Old Dominion.
No, that's a challenge for every group of 5 school, especially ones that have talented rosters. The Sun Belt is getting poached routinely. Player, especially with NIL. We lost players to Indiana, to SMU, to Memphis, all over the place. But Coach Ronnie's done a good job bringing folks in. So, for example, we lost 2 of our running backs, our top 2 running backs by production-wise last year. But we bring in 2 new running backs. We bring in Aaron Young out of Rutgers. The interesting thing about Aaron is his brother Jordan was our all-time leading tackler until Jason Henderson broke that record. He's here, so we've got a little family legacy. And Bryce Duke coming from Virginia Tech. So both really good additions to the team. You mentioned Deontay Vines earlier coming from Iowa. He's going to have much more opportunity in this offense than he ever would have at Iowa. So we look for big things there. Bringing a quarterback in, obviously Grant is starting, but we've made that room a little bit deeper. And then on the defensive side of the ball. So the staff has done a very good job in the portal, despite losing 57, or having 57 new people as a team. That's kind of the new normal at our level, because you got the players that aren't getting time that maybe go to an FCS school, and then you've got the ones that have done really well, and the Power 4 schools come a-calling. So we're used to it at this point.
In today's world of college football, what unfortunately the Group 5 has become as a stepping stone for really, really good players, where if you ball out at a place like Old Dominion, guess what? the Indianas and the Texas A&Ms and the teams like that all around the country are going to come wanting to poach your players, and we've seen that happen, as Aaron Zielinski mentioned there. But that must mean they're doing something right if they are able to have talent on a year-to-year basis that is going on to play at Power 4 schools after the fact, and they clearly have some talented guys there. And one spot that he alluded to a little bit there that they added to from the portal was wide receiver, and a room as a whole that is chock full of guys that are really, really fast. Cut number 14 here, Dave. This is Aaron Zielinski talking about the speed they have in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, you said it. So this group is not a tall group, but they are an extremely fast group. So it'll be interesting to see how Coach Deck and Coach Ronnie use them in this game. We lost some production to the portal, but obviously Deontay Vines, number 0, has come in. But we bring a lot back too. Isaiah Page, number 1. Isaiah is not a big guy. He's 5'8", 161, but he's a very crafty, fast, twitchy kind of guy. He's been around for a while. He's a senior, so he really knows the game well. Kelby Williams, number 6, he's a junior. He's our biggest wide receiver that you're going to see out there, 6'2", 185. But like you said, Dominic Dutton. So Dom is, I don't know who the fastest guy is of these are. They're all very fast. But like you said, when Dom got the ball last year, he usually was scoring, and they were usually very long.
So again, a lot of speed in that wide receiver room, not a lot of size, as he talked about there. Vines certainly a welcome addition. And again, when you're playing in Iowa's inept offense these past handful of years, really almost all of Kurt Ferentz's tenure there, but especially these past couple of years under Brian Ferentz as a wide receiver, you just didn't have the opportunity to show out. And Vines had a couple catches when he was at Iowa last year, but nothing too notable. So it'd be interesting to see how he handles going down to a place like Old Dominion and what kind of feature he can be in this pass game. And then Dominic Dutton, who is a very fascinating case for them at wide receiver. He was a sprinter here at South Carolina on the track team several years ago. Now, he did not play football for South Carolina, was not a walk-on or anything like that, but did transfer to Old Dominion and has now joined the football team. And he's somebody that, as I mentioned with Zielinski yesterday, has not made a ton of catches. He just made 9 last season. 4 of those went for touchdowns. And again, being a sprinter, he's very, very fast, a definite deep ball threat to want to keep your eyes on coming up tomorrow. But the big matchup to me, he alluded to it, Isaiah Page, 5'8", not a physically imposing guy by any means, but their main slot guy that is very, very fast, as slot guys tend to be. How does Jelon Kilgore handle that? We know, and Kilgore ended up being the main guy at that nickel corner spot as the season went along, but the coverage was an issue in the entire season. But even with Kilgore as the end of the year came about, what kind of progression has he made this offseason? How much better has he gotten at covering that slot wide receiver to where it hopefully won't be an issue, where the Ricky Pearsalls of the world can't come in and just light you on fire like Florida did a season ago? So that's one area that I'm very interested to see how Carolina has progressed, and hopefully this gives them a good test in week number 1 before they take on some SEC opponents coming up here in the next couple weeks. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball, because this is a very solid team defensively, especially when you talk about their run defense, ranked 46 nationally a season ago. They run a 3-3-5, like we saw South Carolina implement a little bit later on in last season. Cut number 12 here, Dave. This is Aaron Zielinski from the Monarchists talking about that 3-3-5 front that they bring.
Yeah, when you've got 3 up front, you've got to get creative in bringing pressure from different areas, make it unpredictable, because if you're just playing 3 up front against 5, you're going to lose that all the time. So I would expect to see that. The defense has been, under Coach Seiler, it's been a strong suit of Old Dominion. Jason Henderson, obviously, that's a guy that people want to keep an eye out for, number 42. He is the quarterback of the defense. He's Mr. All-American, Mr. ODU, has been here, has not transferred anywhere. He is coming off of an injury, so it's his first game back. But the defense is just trying to, got to mix it up and be unpredictable. It's kind of a bend but don't break kind of defense. But they have been the kind of the strongest part of Old Dominion in the last few seasons with the kind of the program of where it's been.
Again, their strength is up front when it comes to stopping the run, 46 nationally a year ago. Pass defense, not great. 111th in the country last year, giving up 250 yards a game on average. They're replacing their entire secondary. They do welcome in a All-American from the JUCO ranks at safety, at Jerron Manning, but this should be a secondary when South Carolina does decide to pass the ball that hopefully they can take advantage of. But getting back to that three-man front and this 3-5 defense as a whole, as again, we've seen on display for South Carolina, where you get those linebackers involved, bring some heat off the edge, putting pressures on quarterbacks. I can't think of a better first test for this new offensive line for South Carolina than a team that is going to be coming at you the entire game with speed coming off the edge, especially when we talk about Jason Henderson, number 42 at the linebacker spot, who I'll get to a little bit more here in a second. Like, this is a team that we're going to learn very quickly if Carolina's offensive line is up to snuff or not, because if they go out there and they give up, 4 or 5 sacks against this Old Dominion team, then we're probably in trouble for the year. If they can hold them at bay, and Sellers being a scrambling guy, they may get a sack or something like that. They're not that big of a deal. But if you can keep them from consistently penetrating your backfield, then I think we're going to feel pretty good coming away from this game about South Carolina's offensive line heading in to week number 2. And again, opening up those running lanes for the running backs as well as Sellers himself as well. Now, again, you have to account for Jason Henderson. We've had fun talking about his tackling numbers. Still, this guy is a dude. And whether the numbers are skewed or not, he is a good ball player, sideline to sideline type of guy. He's going to be all over the field. He's going to be probably trying to put pressure on Lenore Sellers, make him uncomfortable. And, we'll see what they're able to do as far as holding him at bay. But I loop back around. This is going to be my consistent point throughout the morning here. As long as South Carolina does not shoot themselves in the foot, they should be okay. On paper, they are a much more talented team than what Old Dominion is. And as long as they don't, beat themselves, this should be a win. I'm not saying it's going to be a comfortable win. I'll get to my prediction for the score a little bit later on. But Carolina has the resources and the skill to win this game more than what Old Dominion does. Now, again, every team has a chance to win. You kick off any football game, I don't care if it's Alabama facing a D3 school. There are things that can happen that can allow that D3 school to win that game. No matter what you think. So there's always a chance that the underdog can come in here and upset them. But again, if South Carolina crosses their T's and dots their I's, I think they should be okay. And hopefully we're having a positive reaction Monday when we're back in here coming up on Monday morning, taking your calls and text on what happened on Saturday. Busy day here. Again, I'm broadcasting live out at the Darlington Raceway, getting set for the Southern 500. Plenty more NASCAR talk coming up on the other side here. Jay and Elijah going to be out at Columbia Craft for the post-game show today from 3 until 6 on Green Street down in the Vista as the final tailgate of the preseason, getting you set for kickoff tomorrow between South Carolina and Old Dominion. We'll talk some racing, also take a look at some of the other games happening around the country coming up next. It is the Extra Point Tyler Head broadcasting from the Media Center at Darlington Raceway on your Football Friday here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head with you on this Football Friday, getting you set for South Carolina and Old Dominion coming up tomorrow afternoon at 4:15. Again, pregame coverage starting by myself and Terry Ford at 11 a.m. for Gamecocks game day, live at the party lot at Sound and Images on Bluff Road. Then Network takes over at 1 o'clock, leading up to that 4:15 kick in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. But it's also Southern 500 weekend as we're out here at the Darlington Raceway. Appreciate Josh Harris and everybody here at Darlington for allowing us to be out here. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's going to be a great weekend of racing. I expect a compelling race on Sunday night with these guys below the cut line, trying to get themselves into that field of 16 to run for the NASCAR championship coming up here starting next week in Atlanta, running through Phoenix at the end of the year. But some interesting news coming out yesterday as NASCAR released its 2025 schedule for all three of its national series. And we have a little bit of movement when it comes to Darlington and what the race dates are going to be for next year. So as expected, because of the way the calendar falls, this year, Darlington was the last race of the regular season. Next year, it's going to make its way back to the first race of the playoffs. So the Labor Day weekend race, Southern 500, will start the playoffs next year. But the spring race has been, since it made its return officially a couple years ago, has consistently been on Mother's Day weekend. That is no longer the case. Next year, the Darlington Spring Weekend is moving to April 5th and 6th. You'll have the Cup Series race on Sunday, April the 6th. You also have the NASCAR Xfinity Series in action that Saturday on April the 5th. So again, about 5 weeks earlier than it had been in the past couple years. So hopefully we get some good weather for that one as well. And then the NASCAR Truck Series, what's typically been happening is all three series have been racing in the springtime. So you had trucks on Friday, Xfinity on Saturday, Cup on Sunday. Now they are splitting the dates. So the Xfinity Series will race here in the spring, and then NASCAR Truck Series, as a part of their playoffs, will be here next fall. So they'll be running next on the Saturday portion of the fall schedule next year, again for Labor Day weekend, as a part of the NASCAR playoffs. And for anybody out there that may be a little bit of a lapsed NASCAR fan, the name Rockingham probably means something to you. Well, I'm happy to report that the Rockingham Speedway is officially coming back to NASCAR's Top 3 Series coming up next year, as the NASCAR Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series will be reviving Rockingham Speedway Saturday, April the 19th and Friday, April the 18th, with both series in action there in the springtime. Again, that's a track, for anybody that knows anything about NASCAR, that's a track that has been dormant for a while. The Cup Series last race there in 2004. Trucks have had a couple races there in 2012 and 2013, but it just did not have the fan support that it needed to continue to stay open. So thanks to actually government funding, believe it or not, and the state of North Carolina, with the governor up there, they have funded a lot of money into racetracks, which included North Wilkesboro, who made its return a couple years ago with the All-Star race, which is doing every single year now, and Rockingham Speedway. So Rockingham makes its return. Again, you got North Wilkesboro back on the schedule. Darlington's got 2 races. If you're an old school NASCAR fan, I mean, you may as well jump back in, because all the great tracks are seeing their lights come on once again. I'm very excited to see the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Truck Series back there coming up this spring. And I will advise any of you, if you want Rockingham to stay, and again, I know it's only a couple hours drive across state line, buy a ticket, because showing up and supporting that track will keep it open for the long run, and certainly hope to see a good crowd out there for that spring weekend coming up next April with the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Truck Series. We're very excited also about this weekend of college football. Of course, you have Carolina taking on Old Dominion, but you also have a good handful of notable games taking place over the course of the next couple days. And look, it's week number 1. As you would expect, there's a lot of cupcakes, right? There's a lot of tune-up games in there. You know, Alabama's playing Western Kentucky, Tennessee's playing UT Chattanooga, but you have some juicy matchups intermixed as well. Leading off tomorrow, right after College Game Day on ABC, you have Georgia and Clemson in the Aflac Kickoff Classic at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Big question for Georgia, who's the running back? Because you had Roger Robinson go out with an injury. We don't know the status of Trevor Etienne because of his, reckless driving that took place in the offseason. A lot of believe he's going to be suspended, but Georgia's not released a depth chart, so we don't know yet. I believe Branson Robinson's probably going to be your feature back there. If all that does indeed end up true, Cash Jones probably going to get some play as well in Georgia's backfield, as they are obviously very, very talented across the board. And my question, for Clemson is, how much faith do you have in offseason development? Because we know, and we've talked about it plenty, Dabo doesn't like the portal. Dabo did not go out in the portal and get everybody. They lost a couple guys to the portal, including Bo Collins, one of their main receivers from last year, who's off to Notre Dame now. How much improvement has Kate Culvin made? What does year number 2 in Garrett Riley's offense do for him? You're taking the same team from last year, minus a couple parts and pieces there, including Will Shipley, who's gone off to the NFL now, and hoping that they're better. And it's only a 14-point line, but I feel like it's going to be one of two things. Either Georgia's going to completely run them out of the building, like they did Oregon 2 years ago in their season opener in Mercedes-Benz, or it's going to be tight down to the wire game, and Clemson will have improved a lot this offseason. There's no in between. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 14, 17-point game. It's either going to be like a 30-point blowout, or it's going to be a nail biter down to the very end. That is certainly going to be entertaining one way or the other. And this is the one week where I feel like most people listening to the station don't have a problem with me going to Georgia, because hopefully they will kick Clemson's teeth in tomorrow, and we can all celebrate that happening. Penn State and West Virginia. Neil Brown saved his job last year at West Virginia. His seat was as hot as could be, and went out there. They won 9 games and really snuck under the radar for a lot of people. So he's in good standing. Penn State, on the other hand, is a team that is expected to be in the playoffs. They are, if we retroactively went back and made 12-team playoffs out of previous years, Penn State would have been in more often than not. They're a team that's been playing second fiddle to Ohio State and Michigan for basically a decade now. And this is their opportunity to get in the playoff and try and make some noise with it. How good is Drew Aller this year? Aller could not push the ball down the field. That was the biggest problem for that offense last year, which made it very, almost one-dimensional to a degree. Great defense. And Tom Allen coming over as defensive coordinator after coaching at Indiana, it should still be really, really good. How dynamic can this offense be? I don't think they're going to have a problem winning at West Virginia tomorrow, though that is going to be a raucous atmosphere. But I'm interested to see what Penn State does for the rest of the season, if they can finally stand toe-to-toe with the likes of Ohio State and now Oregon coming into the Big Ten. Miami and Florida, 3:30 tomorrow on ABC. Both coaches under immense amounts of pressure. We've talked plenty about Billy Napier and what's on the line for him with, how rough this schedule is going to be. And most of us don't think he's going to survive it. But if Florida wins this game, then people are going to be looking at Mario Cristobal saying, hey, bud, what's up? Because this is a guy in 2 seasons at Miami is 12-13. They obviously lost that embarrassing game to Georgia Tech last year, which put a lot of heat on him. He's a guy that took a big step forward in year number 3 when he was at Oregon. Got him 12-2, went to the Rose Bowl. They loaded up in the transfer portal this offseason. Is that going to make a difference? We'll see. They are more talented than Florida is, I think. And if Miami can't walk out of the swamp with a victory, there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of hot seat talk for Mario Cristobal. And likewise for Florida as well, if they lose tomorrow, that, people will already be talking about, what this might just end up being maybe a 2 or 3 win team when it's all said and done. And that heat's going to continue to turn up on Billy Napier as well. Have Notre Dame and Texas A&M coming up on Saturday night. That's the marquee matchup of the weekend. I saw Johnny Manziel is going to be on game day. That's going to be interesting dynamic with him and Nick Saban. Look, Notre Dame's great on defense. They bring in Riley Leonard from Duke as their quarterback. Can they be the real deal? A lot of people are expecting to be in the college ball playoff. They have a very manageable schedule. This win goes a long way for them. If they don't win this game, I don't think they make the playoff. If they do win this game, I think they're almost a shoe-in at worst, maybe being like a 10-2 type team. That's how manageable the schedule is. And on the flip side of things, A&M and Mike Elko, the cupboard's not bare. Jimbo gets fired, and yeah, they lost some talent, but not all of it. They got Connor Wakeman back, who's going to be one of the more under-the-radar quarterbacks to start this year in the SEC because of his injury last year. Didn't see him for a full season, but he's got the intangibles. He's got buzz at the NFL level, and this should be a solid A&M team, even with a first-year head coach there first-year at A&M head coach and Mike Elko. And then Sunday night, we get Southern Cal and LSU. Take the over. Points galore. We'll see how LSU replaces high-level production like Jaden Daniels, like those 2 first-round receivers in Neighbors and Thomas from last year, and if their defense got any better. Same thing for Southern Cal. How is Miller Moss going to fill the shoes that Caleb Williams is leaving behind? Can the Lincoln Riley system just plug anybody in and go? We certainly saw that in the Holiday Bowl where he threw 6 touchdowns. Can they get better on defense? I'll believe it when I see it. I have more faith in LSU in this one than I do Southern Cal, but they might end up surprising us come Sunday night. So it's a loaded weekend, action-packed. Cannot wait for it. Also can't wait for the Southern 500 coming up on Sunday night. One of the drivers in that show is going to be Harrison Burton, who we spoke to a little bit earlier on this week, fresh off of his first career win at Daytona. We'll react to that for you coming up next. It is the Extra Point live from Darlington Raceway on your Football Friday. Tyler Head going until noon here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, along with you on your Monday morning. That was the call on Saturday night. NBC Sports Lee Diffie, Steve Letarte, and Jeff Burton in the booth as Jeff's son Harrison crosses the finish line first, gets his first career win in the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at the Daytona International Speedway. We have the man of the hour on the Love Chevrolet phone lines now. Harrison, first of all, congratulations on that victory. What an amazing race. Less than 48 hours removed. What are the emotions like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's still sinking in a little bit, right? And anytime you win at Daytona, it's really, really special. The circumstances in which we kind of got that one makes it, that win makes it even more special. So, gosh, I mean, all the different storylines. It's the 100th win for the Wood brothers. For me, it's my first career win. Kind of on the heels of being on my way out of that opportunity and all those things, and just trying to get that first win is so hard. Trying to get the 100th win for the Wood brothers, it seemed like it was really, really hard, and there was always that shadow kind of looming over you trying to get that, and not very many opportunities do you get to drive for an amazing family like the Woods, to try and get some NASCAR history under your belt like that, and so to be able to capitalize on that, be able to put that win in the record book is really, really, really special, and something that I'll definitely cherish forever, and something I will never forget.
Are you aware you're the first driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to win that's been born in the 21st century?
Yeah, I did hear that stat in the media center. I think that's crazy. I feel like there's so many good young drivers out there now. I've been in the Cup Series for like 3 years now, and I feel like an old veteran now, man. But it's pretty funny. I'm just putting that into perspective. Still have a lot of tread on my tires as my career goes. I still have a long time left to try and win races, and understand I'm still a young guy. It's kind of cool to put that in perspective, and that's definitely a way to do it for sure.
Well, if you need any reassurance, you wanting your 98th career start, Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson both also got their first wins in their 98th career start, and both those guys are champions. So maybe you're well on your way to being that too.
There you go. It's just number 98 that matters the most. So I'll take that and run with it for sure.
And again, talking to Harrison Burton, NASCAR Cup Series driver, fresh off of his first career win at Daytona on Saturday night. And you mentioned the Wood brothers. It's been a long time coming, trying to get that 100th win. Blaney got this 99th for them back at Pocono in 2017. And I can only imagine that was a lot of weight put on your shoulders when you joined that team a couple years ago to be the guy to potentially get them that 100th win. And I can't think of a better place for it to come than a historic place at Daytona that they've had so much success at.
No, definitely not. And what's really cool is you can tell, like, for Blaney in particular, how much it mattered to get number 100 for them. And he had an opportunity to do it. He obviously got number 99 for them. Probably could have gotten 100 on multiple different occasions, had chances to win races for them. And moved on to Team Penske, and still is just such a member of the Wood brothers family. When we won, he was sitting in victory lane in his fire suit still for probably 2 hours with us, just hanging out and enjoying it, and sitting with the Woods and really just taking it all in. And he disappeared for a little bit and came back with a case of beer. That's a good teammate right there. So it is really special just for him to be a part of that as well. I saw Matt DiBenedetto, who's a former Wood brothers driver as well, tweeted out congratulations to them. You can just tell, with all the drivers in the past, and me included, how much love they have for the Wood family, and what they mean to our sport. So to get 100 for them is really, really, really neat.
And now, as we look ahead to this weekend, Darlington, the final race of the regular season, I imagine there's a whole lot less stress going into this weekend than you thought it was going to be prior to the win on Saturday night, huh?
I think it's more stressful now. I think it's for us now, we have to get ready and gear up for the playoffs. So Darlington's our last race before the playoffs now, and this new kind of wave of energy and focus has kind of come across our team, and it's like, okay, now we have an opportunity to do something special, right? And make some noise in the playoffs. You don't get this chance every day. Yes, we won it at a kind of a wild card race weekend, but now that we're in it, we have to make the most of it. And Darlington's a good racetrack for us. Certainly somewhere that I feel like we can run well at. I finished, I think, sixth there is one of our probably I think our best finish there. And, just trying to build on those past runs where I feel like we've had good race cars and been competitive there, and try and make the most of it. So really, really happy, really excited to try and use this new focused energy we have, right? And it was kind of all looking sort of bleak, right? Like okay, these are my last, I guess 11 races, 10, 11, 12 races here until, before last week until, I'm out of the Wood Brothers car, not able to continue this relationship with these guys. And all of a sudden now we have a new goal at hand. We have a new task in trying to get in these playoffs. And now that we're in them, try to make the most of it.
And talking to Harrison Burton, NASCAR Cup Series driver, ahead of this weekend's Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. You mentioned that sixth place finish, which was last spring, and that was probably the most complete race it seems like you've had in your Cup Series career from start to finish, ran in the top 10 pretty much all day. Obviously, Darlington's a very special place for your family. Your dad and your uncle have both won there on a couple different occasions. Why does that track fit you so well, and what can we expect out of the 21 team this weekend?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's been somewhere that, when I first went there, the first time I ever drove at Darlington was the first race back from the kind of COVID break. And so what that meant was, I had I think I was 19 at the time, 19 or 20. It was, hey, bolt into your car, and run your first lap at Darlington under our race conditions. And then NASCAR Xfinity Series was like, oh gosh. And I hated it. It was miserable. It was so stressful. Such a hard racetrack, such a challenging racetrack. And I don't think I finished that badly, but it felt like I did a horrible job. I think I finished 8th or something like that. And, I felt like I had a car that was capable of probably contending for the win, but I just couldn't figure the place out in enough time to go and try and take advantage of it. It was so hard. And I kind of got kicked in the mouth by that place. And what that did was kind of refocus my energy into what makes really good guys good here. And I think after that race, I spent probably 10 hours watching film at that racetrack after the race, trying to understand it and see what different guys do. And what that did is, and what makes Darlington special is it has so many options. And so you can take things from different guys that they do well and kind of put it into your own playbook. And, Denny Hamlin, I think, is known for his super high entry into turn 1, where he's, way higher than everyone else and gets this big run on the center exit. And then you can watch that and go, okay, let me try that and figure that out. And then the next time you have practice there, you try it. And you just take these little things from everyone's notebooks and, all of a sudden you have a pretty big tool belt, and you're able to kind of adjust the car, if that makes sense, for the balance that it has, whether it's tight or loose, based off of what line you run. And that makes it kind of something that I think I'm good at, and something that, helps me throughout the day.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to it. Always love the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, getting set to end the regular season and jump right into the playoffs here in a couple weeks. Once again, Harrison, want to say congratulations for your win on Saturday night. I know that was huge for you and your family, and want to wish you and the 21 team the best of luck in the playoffs.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on. It's exciting, and yeah, like you said, going to the playoffs now. Let's go get after it.
Conversation with Harrison Burton a little bit earlier on this week, fresh off of his first career win at the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. Now locked himself into the NASCAR playoffs, and as controversial as that has been this week, because he was the lowest in driver points going into that race, even coming away from it on Saturday night. The way the rules work, if you win, you're in, and that's what the 21 team and Wood Brothers Racing was able to do at Daytona on Saturday night, and that creates a lot of pressure for Bubba Wallace, for Ross Chastain, for Kyle Busch, for Micah McDowell, for a lot of these guys that are below the cut line, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., that look at this opportunity at Sunday at Darlington as an opportunity to win their way in to the playoffs and make a run for that championship this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that play out on Sunday night. Very excited for it. I'll get to some of my picks for the Southern 500 coming up next, as well as take a look at what's happening around the SEC coming up tomorrow as well. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head broadcasting live from the Darlington Raceway on your Football Friday. Also getting set for Southern 500 weekend here on the Game. Welcome back into the Extra Point. Tyler Head with you. Wrapping up today's show, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs coming up next. What you're hearing is the old new SEC on ABC theme that you'll be hearing quite a bit this fall on your Saturdays. It's the same theme that ABC used in the early 2000s when it came to the SEC, and they're reviving it, bringing it back. It's certainly not the SEC on CBS theme that we all have an affinity for, and I'm very proud to admit was practically my alarm for many, many years when it came to college football Saturdays. I sometimes still listen to it, just get myself pumped up. You had the trumpets and the band, the drums, all that kind of stuff. It was the perfect song that now is reserved for, Rutgers and Illinois on a Saturday afternoon. But SEC on ABC, there's your theme song. Not sure how you feel about it. I'm indifferent. It sounds fine. I'm not in love with it, but I will get used to it as time goes along. Speaking of the SEC, a lot of games on tap this weekend. Again, Missouri and Arkansas handled their business last night, beating the combination of Arkansas Pine Bluff and the Fighting Jody Wrights of Murray State, a combined 121-0. Arkansas 70-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Missouri with the 51-0 win over Murray State. And look, I'm not taking anything away from these games. They're lesser opponents from the SCS level. Murray State with a first-year head coach in Jody Wright that got pummeled by an SEC team. That tells me nothing about how good Missouri or Arkansas are going to be. I think Missouri is actually going to be a good team once again this year. Arkansas probably not, but at least for last night, they can celebrate a dominant 70-0 victory. Again, talked about Clemson and Georgia coming up to kick things off tomorrow afternoon on ABC. Georgia, as of right now, actually looking at the line, according to ESPN, is down to an 11.5-point favorite. So number coming down a little bit more in the favor of Clemson as of right now. I think Georgia still takes care of that one. Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt's an interesting one to me. VT is a 13.5-point favorite. Look, going on the road in week number 1 is never easy. And I know Vanderbilt's not a raucous environment. I'd keep my eye on Vanderbilt, maybe, just maybe, covering the spread on that one with the 13.5 that Virginia Tech is getting. Tennessee playing UT Chattanooga should be a blowout. Nico's probably going to look amazing. If people there aren't already clamoring for him to win the Heisman, they probably will become Monday morning because he's probably going to get a chance to show out there. Same thing with Texas and Colorado State. Again, that's a less than great Colorado State team. Texas has so much talent on their roster, as we know very well. They should be able to handle those guys without much fanfare. Florida and Miami, again, Napier's really on the hot seat if they lose this game because there aren't many guaranteed wins by any means happening on that Florida schedule. Mississippi State taking on Eastern Kentucky tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus and the SC Network Plus. First game for Jeff Lebby. Bring in Blake Shapen as your new quarterback. I'm not expecting much out of Mississippi State this year. Should be a routine win for them to at least get some confidence rolling in the right direction, start off the season. But again, I don't know how much we can glean from that one. Same thing with Alabama and Western Kentucky. Kalen DeBoer coming in. This has the makings of a 66-3 game, like we've seen so many times with Alabama. Jalen Milroe can go out there and shine, as can all the other talented guys on that team against a Western Kentucky squad. Again, I keep saying the same thing, but this is an FCS team taking on a SEC team, and especially as talented as Ole Miss is, they might score 90 on them if they really want to. They can name their number at this point in time, and they should be able to do just that. Alabama, A&M, and Auburn, same thing. I think Auburn's very under the radar this year. I think they're going to put up a lot more points than they did years ago. I'll see how progressed Peyton Thorne can be in year 2 there under Hugh Freeze. Kentucky and Southern Miss, we're going to keep an eye on this one. Might be a game you want to go back and watch the replay of later if you don't see it live, because we're going to learn a lot about Kentucky, hopefully, in week number 1 in their game against Southern Miss before that week 2 matchup there in Lexington. And, of course, as I said earlier, I think LSU takes care of Southern Cal in Las Vegas for the Sunday night matchup there. So full weekend of college football. Very excited for it. Also, of course, very excited as I'm out at Darlington Raceway for Cookout Southern 500 coming up on Sunday to wrap up the NASCAR regular season. According to FanDuel, Kyle Larson, the odds-on favorite at plus 650 to win. He won this race 1 year ago, had a good competitive car back in the spring, ended up wrecking in that one. He is always good at Darlington Raceway. His ability to run up towards the wall, up towards the top, works very well at a track like this. Denny Hamlin, the master of the Southern 500, also a heavy favorite at plus 700, the second best odds. And Tyler Reddick in third, who seemingly was in position to win this race in the spring until he and Chris Buescher collided there. So those are your top 3 betting favorites. I want to go outside the box on this one a little bit. I look at guys below that playoff cut line. Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, that are desperate, so desperate to get a win to get in the playoffs. Bubba Wallace could point his way in, but that's a bit of a stretch. I got Ross Chastain, personally. I think that's a team that's not afraid to gamble. Phil Surgeon is crew chief, that's not afraid to throw things at the wall. And if there's an opportunity to stay out late, maybe gain some track position, and if a quickie yellow falls after that, they could be in the catbird seat in the late stages of this race to not only win the Southern 500, but lock themselves into the much coveted NASCAR playoffs as well. Again, it's going to be a fun weekend out here. Hopefully able to see some of you as we've given some tickets away this week as well at the Southern 500 on Sunday night. Again, if you see me on pit road, I should be wearing something game related, I would imagine. See me on pit road for the race or whatever. Come say hi, take a picture, whatever you want to do. Certainly looking forward to it. And, not officially wrapping up because we'll have football on Monday night as well, but capping off a great college football weekend with some great NASCAR action here at the Darlington Raceway as well. That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Wes and Chris will jump in here and we'll get their thoughts as we get set. We are, doing my math here, 30-ish hours away. Yeah, 29 hours, excuse me. A little over 29 hours away until South Carolina tees it up with Old Dominion tomorrow. We finally learn what this team is all about. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs coming up next on your Friday, Football Friday, that is, here on The Game.